For the record, my name is Henry Santana, at-large City Councilor, and I am the Chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Education. Today is Monday, September 23, 2024. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live-streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and FiOS Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.education@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken at the end of this hearing. Individuals will be called on in the order in which they signed up and will have 2 minutes to testify. If you are interested in testifying in person, please add your name to the sign-up sheet near the entrance of the chamber. If you are looking to testify virtually, please email our Central Staff Liaison, Shane Pack, at shane.pack@boston.gov for the link, and your name will be added to the list. Today's hearing is on docket number 0651, order for a hearing to discuss the need that all youngest children in the Universal Pre-Kindergarten program are receiving their special education services. This matter was sponsored by Councilors Erin Murphy, Liz Breeden, and Ben Weber, and was referred to the committee on April 4, 2024. Today, I am joined by my colleagues in order of arrival. Councilor Erin Murphy, who is the lead sponsor, Councilor Liz Breeden, who is the co-sponsor, Councilor Enrique Pepen, Councilor Ed Flynn, and Councilor Weber, who is also a sponsor. We also received a letter of absence from Councilor Ruthie Lujan. Before we begin, I'd like to just ask folks to please silence their phones and devices. As Chair of the Education Committee, it is my priority to ensure that every child in Boston has the resources and support they need to succeed, starting with the youngest learners in the Universal Pre-K. Today's hearing is an opportunity to evaluate whether we are adequately delivering on that promise for children requiring special education services. We know early intervention can make all the difference in a child's educational journey. We need to ensure that families feel supported and that Boston Public Schools are equipped to meet the diverse needs of every student from the start. I look forward to the testimony and insights shared today as we work together to guarantee equity and access for all of our students. I'd like now to provide an overview of the panelists the committee invited, and then I'll open up the floor for the lead sponsor, original co-sponsors, and our colleagues to provide open remarks if desired. The committee invited Mary Skipper, who is the Superintendent of Boston Public Schools, Kay Seal, Chief of Specialized Services, Boston Public Schools, the Director of Early Childhood of Boston Public Schools, Tiara Diaz, Executive Director of Early Childhood, Boston Public Schools, and Kristen McSwain, Director of Office of Early Childhood. I'd like to hand the floor over now to the lead sponsor and original co-sponsors for opening remarks. Councilor Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And as the Chair said, this was filed back in April. I'm glad we're here. I will touch on a few things before we move on, but I will do my opening statement. So as a former early childhood educator and special education coordinator in the Boston Public Schools for over 2 decades, and as a parent, I have young adults now, I have children who have made their way in some years through the BPS system. I've witnessed firsthand the profound importance and positive impact of providing universal pre-K for our children. For many families in Boston, this can truly be life-changing, and we know that. As a K-1, K-2 teacher for many years, there was a stark difference between those children who had already spent a few years in a preschool, a quality setting, or those who it's their first time in school. And research consistently shows that children who enter kindergarten without prior early learning or playgroup experience often lag behind their peers academically. They may lack critical social skills, struggle with social interactions and conflict resolution, and find it challenging to manage their emotions within a structured environment. These gaps can lead to, and we know do, lead to higher risks of academic difficulties. And we see it in the data. When less than 30% of our third graders are reading on grade level, it's starting from those years before. And furthermore, in the context of this discussion today, which I hope is going to be about the special ed services that we are federally required to deliver, not a slideshow about the wonderful work the Universal Pre-K is doing, which we know. I mean, I feel like I'll speak, Julie, if Julia, Council Mejia was here, she'd be reminding us that we don't want hearings with BPS where half of the panelists show up and then we have slideshows about telling us the good things that are happening. I shouldn't say I wish, but I mean, the job of a city councilor is not just to go to ribbon cuttings and, you know, clap and cheer when good things are happening, even though that is an exciting part of the job. Our job is the hard work of when we see things aren't working, how do we use our power here? And a hearing is one way. So this hearing I'm glad we're having, but I hope that the panelists who are here, like we were just talking about, are able to answer the questions that it's not just I'm asking, it's parents, families, providers of the Universal Pre-K program are asking. So we have to acknowledge the challenges that many parents, teachers, and providers face. Many children enter UPK if they have already been in early intervention with an identified special need, but we're seeing more and more, especially coming out of COVID, they're being identified after in the services and the structure that is in a BPS setting is not in a UPK setting. So I've been getting many calls and many concerns since the beginning of the year. I filed this back in April from advocates who are trying to work alongside parents, teachers saying in the UPK setting that they feel like they don't want to complain. They're happy that they're getting the students in the seats, but there's always going to be a percentage of students who are identified once they enter school, and that the services and the deadlines that we are federally required to meet are not being met. And during the budget season, Kay Sale did mention that the bandwidth's just not there, and there are children we're identifying, because if we need to transfer them to a BPS school, they're told, well, there's not a seat, you have to wait, the IEPs aren't written properly, the services aren't being delivered. So that's why I filed this hearing, and I'm hoping that this conversation today, even though, and I'm not sure why, maybe when it's your turn to share, you could explain why the superintendent and the chief of special ed is not here to discuss these important questions, but I look forward to hearing for you. And if it seems as though this discussion isn't going in the direction of the hearing order, then I guess we could reschedule or keep it in committee to have another one. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Moving to our second original co-sponsor, Councilor Braden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. Good morning. Thank you for being here. I'm going to keep my comments very brief. I just really want to get a good handle on where we are with our universal pre-K as it pertains to our special needs students, and what sort of structures we have in place for identifying students who have not already been identified as having special needs, and then what resources do we have to support them and those students and their families so that they get the services they need in compliance with ADA regulations. I think early, as Councillor Murphy has already mentioned, early education is so critically important for our young ones with special needs. I did work at Perkins School for the Blind for 16 years in their early education program, and it was just amazing. Those critical years of developing skills, so that when they reach 5 or 6 years old, they're able to transition into a kindergarten, first grade program. And they've got a lot of those foundational skills and readiness skills under their belt, so that they can really participate and learn well in their new classrooms as they get older. So I think that's important for all of our children, but it's particularly important for our young ones with special needs. So I look forward to the conversation this morning and learning more about what we have in place and what deficits we might need to address going forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Braden. And now to our third original co-sponsor, Councillor Weber, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Murphy and Councillor Braden for bringing this and adding me on as a co-sponsor. I went through the early intervention process as a parent 15 years ago. I know how important it is to identify what's going on and sort of and take some action and provide services, but also how difficult it is to know whether, what is happening with a 2-year-old child and what services they really need. I know that Boston and BPS has been leading the way on early education, but the research shows that in early years, multilingual students are likely to be identified later than non-multilingual students for special ed services, which I think is a major issue. Especially we've got over 30% of BPS students are English learners. And I'm especially interested to learn how we can identify special education needs in an equitable way, regardless of the child's native language. I look forward to participating in the hearing, and thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Weber. At this time, I'd like to offer my other colleagues to make opening remarks in order of arrival, and then we'll proceed with a presentation and opening remarks from our first panel. Councilor Enrique Pepen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for my colleagues for bringing this forward here today to the Chamber. Thank you so much to the administration for being here as panelists. I really wanted to be at this hearing because it is a topic that is very important to my district. In the first week of school, I was able to meet a set of parents from the Georgetown part of Hyde Park, and they have a 2-year-old son, and they were very curious what kind of resources the city has in regards to UPK for kids with special needs. And I actually thought about, what do we have? So here I am. I want to learn more because there's so many parents out there that need more information about what their child can receive. How is it that we as a city can do better? As Councilor Weber mentioned, we are leading the way in the nation. I think that I'm proud of that, and I want to make sure that I am part of also the conversations to make it even better. So thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to learn more.
Thank you. Councilor Ed Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, before I begin, so the superintendent is not testifying today, is that correct?
I believe the two people that we have, the two panelists that we have, is who showed up, but the superintendent was invited.
Special ed is not. Do we know what the reason is that the superintendent is not present?
I don't, but I am certainly prepared to speak as much as possible as the Boston UPK director, formerly, and the executive director on the services that are offered through Universal Pre-K.
Thank you.
Okay. Some of my questions were focused more towards the superintendent, so I won't offer an opening statement.
Thank you, Councilor. I'd like to also acknowledge at this time that we have been joined by Councilor Fitzgerald. Councilor Fitzgerald, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Nope, just here for this very important hearing about services provided. I apologize for my tardiness, so I won't waste anyone else's time. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
You're right on time. Thank you to all of my colleagues. For our panel today, we have the members of the administration. For the panelists presentation today, I'd like to ask each of you to just state your name for the record, and then please proceed with the opening remarks at your discretion. Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you again for having us. Again, my name is Tiara Dias. I'm the executive director for the Early Childhood Department and formerly the Boston Universal Pre-K director. I'm going to hand it over to Kristen to introduce herself.
And I'm Kristen McSwain. I serve as a senior advisor to the mayor for early childhood, and also I'm the director of the Office of Early Childhood, and one of my responsibilities is helping to co-govern Universal Pre-K.
Awesome. And thank you all for having us, and to the mayor for her commitment and making this a family-friendly city. So just to get us started, I just want to highlight the mixed delivery system that we're talking about. It has a long-standing history going back to Menino. Mayor Walsh made the investment in 2019, the funding investment, to move forward with Universal Pre-K. Two big goals was to ensure that families had a variety of settings to choose from, but most important, as you indicated, they had a variety of settings that met their needs. And so thinking about wraparound, thinking about family engagement, qualified staff, as well as the services that they need inside and out of the program. So that was the main goal. The second was around cohesion, really making sure that there was a way that we're sharing information so that we're making informed decisions. This slide here is an example of how we use data to inform the direction of our work, getting to a place where we cohesively understand who we serve. So to be clear, we're starting off with 13,000 students, 3 and 4-year-olds rather, across Boston. We serve about 22% of the 3-year-olds and a little bit over half of the 4-year-olds through our universal pre-K program. So that is just starting us 30-foot lens of where we're starting, which is 50% of our 4-year-olds are served through universal pre-K. In addition to that, I just want to highlight again, it's a free program, 6.5 hours. We run across Boston Public Schools, community-based programs, family child care, and independent schools. And some of the priorities to be funded under universal pre-K start with 4 quality indicators that run across all settings. So licensing and accreditation is critical. It's like our ensuring the health and safety is being met across each one of those settings. The curriculum is designed for Boston, and so it's thinking about the children that we serve, what they need, and helping them make a connection to their community. Each unit starts with community. The other important thing to mention is that the family engagement practices, and so having a family council member who serves as part of our group and really thinking about the decisions we make, but also really the program capacity and the experiences that children are having in the classroom. So those are the foundational pieces to universal pre-K. To become universal pre-K funded, a couple of things need to happen. One is that you need to be in the city of Boston and you need to serve 3 and 4-year-olds. So just to be clear, as I mentioned before, those quality indicators are important. We really want to make sure, as bids are released each year, that providers are not just meeting those 2 foundational criteria, but certainly around the family engagement and the ability to provide those additional services outside of the classroom. Not every provider is going to start there, so we do have an on-ramp, thankfully through the City of Boston, to help providers build out bandwidth and capacity. So whether it's attaining their degrees or getting their licensing, that's what the Office of Early Childhood has been supporting us with. And each year, as you can see, we continue to grow. So just to drill down on the number of seats across universal pre-K, and you can see from the map there, that we served about 4,700 students last year across our education settings, with 95% of those seats full. And then this year, we're adding an additional 200 seats with the goal. So I think it takes us to about 4,924 seats across Boston. And I really wanted to drill down here on the point around the diversity of our providers that are selected. Take a second to really thank them for the work that they're doing. It required them to invest in Boston Public Schools and to build a relationship, a bridge of trust with us. And so whether it was selecting family councils or sitting on our advisory, just to reassure you that the community-based providers, family council, they sit on the advisory committee with us and they make decisions. They inform the priorities of our work to ensure that we're moving in the direction that they suggest. They're part of the reason why we were so quickly able to move towards adding family child care. So shout out to our providers. I'm sure you've been to their programs. Happy, would be privileged and honored to take you to visit some. Do you want to drill down on your point today? Specifically focusing on the population of the children that we serve, so reconnecting to the data. About 36% of our families self-identify as Black or African American in our community-based programs, and it's a little less than 30% in BPS. We have 34% who self-identify as Latinx in our community-based programs and 38% in BPS. We have 29% of our families who self-identify as white in our community programs and 20% in BPS. A little over 12% self-identify as Asian in our community programs and 7% in BPS. And then we have 18% who identify as other or multiracial in our community programs, as well as 5% in BPS. When we talk about how we benefit from our multilingual learners, we have 48% of our students in community-based programs The first common language, the three common languages in our community-based programs are Spanish, Haitian Creole, and Vietnamese. For BPS, 37% of multilingual learners, and the most common language is Spanish, Haitian Creole, and Portuguese. And so when we look at our students with IEPs, we know that about 6% of those students are served in our community-based program, so it's around 70 children. In BPS, it's a much higher number, so it's about 27% of our students with IEPs are served in BPS. And so to drill down on the most important slide, which was the question around how students receive services. And so I just want to clarify a couple of things. This graph here highlights the services that students receive, whether they are UPK or not, so across the settings. I also want to note a couple of things. One is that students are identified in our programs in two ways. One is when they apply, the family may indicate that the child has an IEP or that they have a concern, in which if they indicate that in an application, they're flagged immediately. Oftentimes, more commonly, children are identified throughout the year. And that could be from the provider, it could be from the coach that's working in the classroom, it could be from the family. And so this slide highlights what those services and supports look like. Starting with the assessment. So within 45 days of joining a universal pre-K program, we offer what is called ages and stages. Now, this is offered throughout the city. You do not have to be in a universal pre-K program. We provide professional development and supports with ASQ screenings, including technical supports. And what that does is it looks at the risk and needs of the children within the first 45 days. So the goal is to try and catch any concerns as soon as possible. The second would be Child Find. That is offered throughout the city and throughout the year at multiple locations. And again, it's to identify any risk or needs that children have in the time that they're with us. Now, if a program shares a concern about the child's development, the supports look different. So in our center-based program, if there is a concern, we have a UPK special services team. And so we provide direct services in the classroom as it relates to behavior, speech, and OT. So again, if a community-based program has a concern, our behavior health team will provide the speech, the OT, and behavior health in the program. If the child is in a family child care program, we actually partner with the Home for Little Wanderers, and they provide the direct services. Once we move into evaluations, all of the evaluations are provided by Boston Public Schools Special Services. And just to drill down on that a little bit, this is where the results will indicate whether the child has a disability, if they need specialized instructions, and whether the placement is appropriate. So this touches a little bit on that idea of like the child is currently enrolled in a family child care or community-based. Sometimes it's at the evaluation that then you may need to transition the child to a different environment. And I want to talk a little bit about that because ideally we want to have the child receive the services in their program. We want to make sure it's the least restrictive environment. We want to make sure we're minimizing transitions. But I do want to be clear, the idea of providing services outside of a public school is fairly new. And we've been trying to work across the city and the state to do that really well, addressing the legalities to it, but also making sure we're not just focused on the access, but the quality. And so what is the impact of making sure that we can serve children in that program while also minimizing the transitions and making sure that that is smooth? Currently, we're able to provide the behavior, the speech, and the OT in our community-based programs. And so if there's additional services needed outside of that, they're typically serviced in BPS. So I think the last thing I will say, and again, I don't want to drill down on all the highlights of the programs that we've created, but again, it's a growing system. We have managed to make sure that we're at the 1,500 seats. We've moved to a shared enrollment platform, so I think when we talk about gathering data, we're going to be able to look at that in a much more deeper and cleaner way across these different settings. We have a connector system, so ensuring that when the child starts in the community base, they're then able to connect into BPS. And then those specialized services. So in addition to related services, I also just want to drill down that we focus on health, vision, nutrition, homelessness, Those are all services within our community-based programs that we're insured are provided. So that is it. Happy to answer any questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, and I appreciate the presentation. I'd like now to invite the lead sponsor and original co-sponsors to begin with a round of questions for my panel, for the panel, I should say, and then I will turn the floor over to my colleagues in order of arrival, and I'll go last. I'd like to ask my colleagues to limit their time of initial questions and responses from our panelists to 7 minutes per counselor, including panelist responses. With that, Councilor Murphy, you have the floor for our first round of questions.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, as we know, but I'll just state it, that federal laws mandate that we provide special ed services to students. And if a parent requests, I know BPS has had lots of concerning decades of not providing special ed services to our students who are enrolled, not just our universal pre-K. I'm focusing today on the numerous number of calls I'm getting from parents and special ed workers in BPS who are trying to help these students. And so, I mean, we are federally required, not just, you're talking about, general services like speech and OT, but direct services. And if a parent requests by writing a letter, doesn't need any other reason, we are required by law within 30 days to complete a full testing on a child. Within 45 days, the team needs to develop an IEP that would then need to start as soon as the parents sign it. So we have students who we're trying to kind of piece together and see, and I'm hearing ignoring requests from the parents to have the full testing. And then once identified, we then need to know, and that was part of the conversation, I wanted special ed to be here, and also the superintendent, when do we make sure that we're opening up our seats in BPS and we're moving these students that are identified as having an IEP and now being a special ed student who would be guaranteed a seat? As you know, but I'll just state it, that our K1 and K0 seats in BPS are always under-enrolled because the school year, anytime a child turns 3, I'll say fortunate just because it means you're already receiving services, but if you're a parent whose child is already involved in early intervention, it means you're already been identified as having a disability, and the day you turn 3, your school system has to enroll you and provide you with the services that are written on your IEP, and the team has to follow through. These are students who are taking these sought-after, wonderful, amazing universal pre-K seats, but that are struggling and are clearly needing more than speech and OT. They need a full IEP. They need B-grid services. They need time, and they need it in the least restrictive environment, and the families are concerned and the providers are concerned that they're not equipped to provide those services. So what are we doing to make sure we're not breaking federal law and that our students are immediately placed in a BPS classroom, removed from the universal pre-K setting that cannot provide them the full services, and are placed in a K0, K1 seat at a school, hopefully closest to their home?
Yeah. I can start if that's okay. But yes, just to start to agree that any student with an IEP, we are legally required to provide services and must provide those.
But what I was saying, we're also required to do the testing to write the IEP.
Absolutely.
Because what I'm hearing from is families who take the seat, and as I knew as a kindergarten teacher, many times that's the first setting where parents realize, oh, my child is delayed. I didn't know. Maybe we should try the testing. Maybe we should see if they need support. So 2 concerns that are coming out of the universal pre-K is, 1, testing isn't happening within the 30 days. Full testing isn't happening with the school psychologist, and everything that would happen if it went through the special ed team in a BPS school. But they are Boston students whose families are saying, and teachers or whoever, and it doesn't matter who. Anyone can write the letter. You are federally required, because I know there's always been pushback about whether or not, oh, let's just give it time. Council Weber brought up a point I've been advocating for years as an ESL teacher. Students who don't speak English as their first language, oh, let's just wait till they learn more English. Maybe they're really not delayed. And then what do we find out if they do learn more English? They've been delayed for 3 years and they've lost that valuable time to get the services. That in many times studies show once you miss that window and that window closes, you are much further behind.
Yeah.
So what are we doing to not just address the families who do take a UPK seat? Because you don't need to take a UPK seat if you have an IEP. You will be given a K0 seat.
Yeah.
So most of the students in universal pre-K are identified after they get there.
Yeah,
Because if my
exactly.
child is on an IEP, they are guaranteed a seat in
Exactly.
a K0. So
Yeah, yeah.
let's just be clear that it's once they're there and they're trying to make sure that and the same thing happens, it's not this hearing, but students who are in charter schools, students who are in parochial schools, kind of looking at those students as less than or different when it comes to the caseload of special ed services who have to provide the testing to identify our kids so we can properly service them.
Yes. And for students with IEPs, again, we flag them upon application and try to identify upon enrollment what is the least restrictive environment. So the last thing we want to do is place a child with an IEP in a community-based setting that they then need to transition into BPS. And so that's why this enrollment platform has been so important. That's why the partnership between us and us sitting in BPS has been so important. Our challenge is when we are identifying children throughout the year. And so BPS does fill up. We were 95% full by the end of the year. We have increased 111 total inclusion seats for this upcoming year, but the BPS seats were full. Our challenge happens when we are identifying children throughout the year and then placing them in the BPS schools. You're correct, in our community-based settings, we only provide the speech and the OT and the behavior health. But beyond that, we're working to see if we can provide additional services, thinking about itinerant teachers. Northampton has a wonderful model to which they pay for teachers to come into the classroom and provide the IEP minutes and work in partnership with those community-based programs. So in addition to addressing it in BPS, we want to address it in our universal pre-K programs. The last thing I'll say is that I agree that, like, yes, you don't want to wait too long for language testing, that yes, COVID has impacted children's abilities to interact socially, but there are also, this is where our curriculum and supports come in, and no child should have to wait. It's why we offer the screenings within 45.
No child can wait.
Absolutely.
Well, the federal government comes in and fines us.
Absolutely.
They did with our ESL when we didn't do that properly for decades. So, but when we say that our BPS seats fill up, I just want to be clear, they cannot fill up. If a student lives in Boston and they are on an IEP, we have to find a seat for them. The union can fight with the school department and fight about class size. I know the class size is 22 up to third grade, then it goes to 25. But you have to hire another teacher and you have to open more classrooms. We can't just say, and that's what I'm hearing that these families are being told, well, there's no room. But that can't be an answer for students
Correct.
who need the services. We have to provide them and not making the parents drop them off or drag them or move them around, that they can be enrolled in a school setting that will provide it during the day for them.
Correct. And just, I'll hand it over to Kristen, but just a point of clarification, the classrooms are 15 for the inclusion classrooms, and so there's either the 6 and 9 or the 10 and 5, but absolutely, students with IEPs, we are federally required to serve them in BPS. If possible, we like to keep them in their community-based programs.
I think, Counselor, the thing that I would add to Tiara's answer, and I know she can talk more about this, is in the past 2 years, we've seen a significant increase in the number of 3- and 4-year-olds who do present either with some kind of developmental delay or actually in need of more significant specialized services.
That's what Kay said during the budget hearings.
That's correct.
Why she was on the panel to speak to that directly.
So this past year, one of the things that we have done is we have added additional K0 slots to K1 classrooms for inclusion. So there is a significant increase in the number of K0, K1 inclusion seats. This year it is 1,111 seats They are not all full, so we did our projections to include that additional increase for young people who have a special need. We are meeting on a weekly basis with a team of people across BPS, thinking about what's happening in both our mixed delivery system and in our classrooms. So what we're seeing in terms of our classrooms full, are we needing to make additional accommodations, and really tracking that in real time in a way that we have not in the past, so that we can make some of those additional changes. What happened last year, and I hope that's what you're talking about, because we just started the year, so I hope you're not seeing that now, is that there...
I heard a meeting just happened last week that did not go well, and there's not a placement for a child who's struggling.
So we should talk about that individual instance offline, and Tiara and I can help figure out how to address that. But one of the concerns we did have at the end of the year last room was we did run out of classroom space, and there was nowhere to have additional students. And we changed a lot of different, we looked all over BPS for classroom space, and there wasn't any. So a piece of what we're trying to do proactively is really think about when we are expanding our K0, K1 classrooms across the district, are we including enough classrooms to be able to meet all of the different types of needs of students we're seeing? So both in our inclusion classrooms, but also in our ABA and center-based classrooms, so that we have additional ones. One of the things that we are finding this year with the change in our IEPs, which, as you know, the state changed their IEP, is that students are getting assigned in different ways. So the traditional projections that we use to think about our classrooms have not actually met the needs of the students that we're seeing. So that's another reason that we're paying specific attention to that data on a regular basis. And as I said, that effort at BPS is being led by both Tiara and Cassandra, who are in charge of the early childhood at BPS, both from a special ed and from an overall perspective. So I know that Tiara can talk about that, as well as just the UPK piece.
And I know others want to speak too, but this is, to me, a very positive thing that we're identifying children. I know that
Absolutely.
BPS is saying, well, we don't have the money, we don't have space, we have to find it. Because these are kids who otherwise would have been home with mom or grandma, not in a wonderful pre-K setting being identified. So the fact that we are identifying them at 3 and 4 and not at 5 when K2 is their first school experience, and then they're over-identified with special needs, which is another issue we could have a different hearing on. So it's important that I'm advocating that we get this right, because it's only going to help our children. And we know that the demographics of our students who are special ed are overwhelmingly ESL, Black and brown kids, so we have to do better for all of our kids across the system. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Breeden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think one of the big challenges is just being able to identify students. Like, you don't want them turning up on your doorstep at 3 years old. In terms of they should be having, if they have special needs, they should be having early intervention before that. But we have a pretty dynamic situation in Boston right now with a lot of newcomers. How do we identify students, and then how do we establish sort of, you talked about traditional projections, like identifying students and then anticipating how many UPK spaces you need, and then how many spaces you need in a BPS classroom, so that they can get the full menu of services that they may need.
Yes, so just briefly, the ways that we identify will be, for one, if it is indicated as upon application or enrollment, if the student has an IEP, they're immediately flagged. So that's the first way we learn. The second would be through the ASQ screenings. So that's when we look at risk and needs within the first 45 days. But typically how we're identifying is throughout the year. So if a student has early intervention, IEPs, we're going to catch them upon the application. It's really the students that we're identifying throughout the year that we're tending to, Councilor Murphy's point, is again finding the appropriate placement for that child after the evaluation.
And then just back to the point about children whose English is not their first language. Do we have classroom staff available? Like, if you're not able to, if they can't speak English, then there's a challenge unless you have bilingual evaluators to establish where, you know, a lot of it can be done by observation, I know that, but when you actually get into the nitty-gritty of doing a full assessment, how are we equipped to have bilingual evaluators to screen our children and make sure that they get identified early?
Yes, and so that's part of the work, the evaluation that's done through Boston Public Schools. And I think to your point, prior to the evaluation is also recognizing access, quality access to curriculum and experiences to connect. And so starting with when 25% of our population speaks another language, everything should be translated. Their family handbooks to, you know, their open house materials, everything should be available in the family's language that they're most comfortable with. In addition to that is looking at the curriculum. And so not just saying, oh, well, here's a book in Spanish, but like, how is that relevant, right, to the child's life and their experiences? And so there's a lot of work internally to write the curriculum. But to answer your question directly, the evaluations are done through BPS.
Okay. And,
Were you going to add to that, Kristen?
No, the only thing I was going to say is when we are talking about UPK, Tiara and I tend to be talking about BPS and the mixed delivery system, so I just want to make sure that we're precise in our answers. All of the special education services that are provided in our community-based setting are provided by BPS staff people. So that includes the evaluations, the screening, and any services that are delivered. So to the extent that we're able to provide bilingual services through BPS staff, they're offered in the appropriate language. There are languages that we don't have staff who speak, and in that case, there's a translator. It's obviously not as ideal as someone who's evaluating actually being the person who speaks that other language, and so those are the limitations.
Thank you.
And then to the other issue about students that are maybe in the charter schools, private schools. How many students do your staff have to evaluate every year, both within BPS and then outside as well?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the number of students we evaluate is higher than the number of students that we actually have with IEPs. I would have to confirm the actual number, but certainly there's a significant number of children that that we identify that we may have a concern about. You know, a provider or a family may say, hey, we're asking for additional observations, but the result of the IEPs are certainly lower. As I mentioned before, they're like 6% in the community-based program and about 27% in BPS. Did that answer your question?
Yes, so 6% of the students in the community program are
with IEPs.
With IEPs.
Right, but there's certainly so many more students that at the beginning of the year, a provider or a family may say, hey, we have these concerns. Can you come in and observe? Can we have a child find as a way to move the child towards the evaluation?
Mm-hmm. And what do you see as the greatest barrier to identifying students early if they need special help?
I would say what has been most helpful is having connection to community-based providers who have students as infants and toddlers. And so Councilor Weber talked about 2-year-olds. Universal pre-K starts at 3. And so while a child may not receive early intervention, certainly those experiences that the child is having in the toddler classroom are critical. You know, we're working on a multi-age curriculum, and part of it is understanding the development of infants and toddlers. And so having access to the program, to the family, and to their needs early on is what's most helpful. Mm-hmm. I can think of a lot of challenges, but I would say that's probably what's most helpful.
Just identifying, and then in terms of, you mentioned family supports and wraparound services like family engagement, mm-hmm. and the ability to provide services outside the classroom. Do you do, in terms of family support, do you do like educate parents about, you know, typical development and how things to watch for, and then also carrying home, like the program, if it only happens in school, then mm-hmm. that's not that useful. They need to be able to carry forward the program
Yeah.
And the
yeah.
interventions at home as well in the family setting? How does that work?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is each program has two family council members that we elect, or they elect rather, to join us in our work. So whether we're talking about the cost model or the expansion of special education services, those families are sitting with us making these decisions. I want to be clear about that. The second thing is that we partner with folks like Boston Medical, Strive, the Home for Little Wanderers, to provide those additional supports. But we also have parent workshops, we have parent open houses, we have tons of spaces, we have parent newsletters, multiple spaces for families to better understand students' developmental needs, but also to put those in practice. So we have things like home links, where they can link to our curriculum at home and better understand how that prepares them for school readiness.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Weber, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to start with a follow-up to a question asked by Councilor Murphy on timelines, and so what is the average amount of time it takes for us to do an evaluation after a request, and what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, and as Kristen mentioned, we certainly ran into a challenge with seats by the end of the year in BPS, but 30 days is when the student should be seen, and then certainly within the 90 days placed into a setting for services. Now, again, the child is typically already in a program, in a UPK program. Sometimes what happens is that the child needs to transition from the family child care or from the community base into BPS, and that's where it gets a lot more challenging, especially at the end of the school year. I do just also want to preface that with saying this was before BPS converted over to the inclusion classrooms. We now have expanded the inclusion seats, and so the hope is that the placement is a lot easier. One last thing, and then I'll hand it to Kristen. Is it the right seat, right? So we have inclusion, we have center-based, and we have ABA. And we're constantly, every week, just looking at how those seats are filled, keeping track. Those one-off cases we want to know about and we want to address, and we want to use those as case studies to get better at this. But the goal is to address in place immediately. It was a challenge last year.
I think the other thing that I would add is that we've spent a lot of time over the summer identifying the areas where things have broken down, whether that's the technology system, the ability to have the right kinds of certified teachers. So over the course of the summer, we've spent time trying to mitigate those challenges. I'm sure there will be additional ones that we didn't anticipate. But all of us are really looking to make sure that our youngest learners are in the seat that is the least restrictive environment for them and provides them with the services. If we're not able to do that, part of what Tiara's team did last year was pay for an additional person in the classroom to be able to support the student in a UPK setting that we were not able to move. We did things like hosting, UPK and community-based play groups where we pushed in someone from a therapeutic model. That's not ideal. You want to be able to do it individually, but in the instances where we're not, we've tried to do those over the past year in order to be able to make sure students are getting what we could provide. We also know from EI that they're struggling. There's a staffing shortage for people who are able and certified to work in those settings. So those are the kinds of things that we are trying to mitigate on our side to anticipate being able to meet the needs of our youngest learners.
Okay, and then so I think the literature suggests that in general there's an issue where a speech impairment or it can be erroneously classified as just a normal or typical multi-language learning or dual language learning process. So, I think you mentioned we have people who can do evaluations in folks' native languages. But do you think is that happening in Boston? That somebody who's just being discounted as having an issue because they speak a different language at home?
Are you asking if it's possible that that's happening?
Well, I mean, of course it's possible, but
that was going to be my answer. So
yeah,
yes. Okay.
yeah. So, just walk me through when somebody, if somebody speaks, another language, Spanish, Chinese, what do we do then?
Well, the process is the same. So in our BPS schools, we have bilingual schools as well as supports for our multilingual learners. In the community-based setting, we also have bilingual classrooms and
Correct.
supports for multilingual learners. And so to the extent possible, we do have our special education staff who visit those classrooms who have the language capacity of the bilingual center that they're attending.
Yeah. I don't want to minimize the point around that we do have dual language programs and that our work around trans-adaptation curriculum. And so really thinking about, I don't want to minimize the fact that many of our children have not had these social experiences. Yes, COVID was a thing. And so sometimes ensuring that the curriculum is available in multiple languages, having that exposure, and then in addition to the services, those are exactly what we need to provide a support to our multilingual learners. So I think it's the prong of those things.
But the evaluators, are those the teachers, or they're people who specialize in that?
They're related services staff from
From Boston.
BPS
Okay.
who specialize in it.
And so what languages can we do evaluations in? Do you know?
I would need to check, but I believe it's the 8 common languages that we have for BPS, but I would want to just confirm because my assumption is that there would also be translation available for beyond those 8 languages.
Okay. I guess, how does the move toward inclusion of multilingual students in English-speaking classrooms impact the universal pre-K and the identification of special needs?
How does it impact? It makes us stronger, right?
Well,
Is that what you mean? Like,
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
As we were talking in the spring about this move, you heard all kinds of things, and some were from advocates for multi-language learners saying this was not a good thing for them. So I guess, what's your...
Yeah. I mean, and I'll pass it over to Kristen, but what we talk about a lot in our department is when we ensure access for our Black and our Latinx and our multilingual learners, our students with specialized services, we ensure access for everyone. So whether it's designing curriculum or thinking about the cost model or how we open this bottle, you start by ensuring access for our most vulnerable students, and then every student then has access. And so that is the point that we're starting, whether it is, like I said, about curriculum or a cost model. So I see it as a strength and a benefit and where we should really ground ourselves as we're building out this model.
Can you talk about your work with BU?
Yes, so we do have fairly new, we have a partnership with BU and Dinah Castro, and it is looking at the ways that we coach and train teachers specifically to teach children in Spanish. Now, while the program itself is focused on teaching children in Spanish, again, it's really going to benefit us all when we think about access for all dual language learners. But it is a 2-year program where educators receive credentials as well as coaching and supports inside and outside of the classroom to better strengthen practice, instructional practice around teaching students in Spanish. But that's just one of the examples of how we're taking the information to inform everything from coaching to curriculum to instruction.
But I guess just one last question, Chair. Just from the outside, just the idea of a kid who needs special services, who's learning English, is now, am I right, with this new model, is now in a classroom that with people who speak, who are fluent in English, and is that what's happening, and is that a barrier to learning?
Yeah, I mean, it's a benefit in the sense that we now need to think of the ways to ensure access. And so the coach that's working directly in that classroom would say, tell me more about what language Kristen speaks and what does she need? How is her family's looped in to this conversation? Did we conduct the ASQ screenings? Here's the units that's coming up. Are we going to think about core board books and vocabulary words and home links and experiences that will help not Kristen just make connection in the classroom, but also at home. And then as we're thinking about developing ongoing curriculum, because we write our curriculum internally, what is the language we need to produce in? Just to give you an example, Viet Aid helped us adapt and create curriculum in Vietnamese. It is now used in our Boston Public Schools to help think about a child that may be in an all English spoken classroom, but wants to access, we want to ensure they access the curriculum in Vietnamese. And so those are the tools and resources that we use to support those specific students.
Okay,
I hope that answers your
Yeah,
question.
thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Weber. With that, I'd like to hand the floor now to my other colleagues in order of arrival. Councilor Enrique Pepen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much again for being here and providing us with this information. I would like to start with knowing how does your partnership building begin with local daycare providers? I'm thinking, for example, like on Washington Street in Roswell, we just had a few months ago a ribbon cutting for a new daycare. How is it that the city establishes a relationship so that that establishment has new UPK seats?
So there's a couple of different ways that we interact with childcare providers in the city. So the first contact is generally with my office in just learning all of the different training and technical assistance that's available to them if they are family childcare providers or if they are center-based providers. So that's the beginning of the relationship. In terms of becoming a UPK provider, that is an RFP that is issued because all of our UPK providers are actually vendors. So it's a vending relationship. Some of them are businesses, some of them are nonprofits, and so that's the way that we create that relationship. And as Tiara said, it's all about either being able to meet our criteria or demonstrating a willingness to meet our criteria. And so the sort of the baseline is you have to be willing to hire a bachelor's level teacher. They have to participate in professional development and in coaching. And they have to agree to allow us to bring in all of the assets that we're talking about here today. If you need an MLL coach, if you need special education observations and evaluations, if you need services delivered, you have to agree to have all of those pieces happen in your program. You also have to agree to get NACE accredited, which is the National Association for the Education of Young Children. It's the accreditation mechanism that is most seen in the field. And then if you're an independent school and you're not EEC licensed, you also have to get EEC licensed. So those are the beginning things that people agree to, as well as using our curriculum. And then if you need a year to ramp up on those things, we fund you for a year without children in seats. And then after that, you have children in seats. And so that's the basic arrangement of how they become part of the UPK network. But it's really an opt-in situation more than anything else. Did I forget?
No, you got it. Awesome, thank you.
Yes, just.
That's good. Thank you. And then if more centers are willing to, apply for the RFP and comply with your needs and requirements, how does the funding work? Where is that coming out of the BPS budget, out of the state budget? Where is that coming from?
Yeah, we initially started through a trust, and this is the first year that we're moving towards being a part of the BPS budget. So when Universal Pre-K was started, it was a trust, and then it would become a part of the BPS general funds. We are now part of the BPS budget, which is, again, an example of how we're working cohesively.
Okay. And that covers everything that Kristen mentioned, right?
Yes, exactly. So we fund per classroom, which I think is also important. So whether the child is enrolled or not, we're funding per classroom to ensure that those quality enhancements are still met. Yeah, so in addition to the Universal Pre-K funding, we also partner with the Department of Early Childhood under a CPPI grant. It has two strands. The first strand is to continue to increase 3-year-old seats, and the second is what I talked about around thinking about special education services and keeping children in their community-based settings. And so we're learning from other cities around how we can expand universal pre-K and keep children in their least restrictive environment. I talked a little bit about the itinerant teacher idea, but that is the goal, is to be able to provide services beyond speech, OT, and behavior health.
That's awesome. And I'm going to put my dad hat on for a second. Let's say I have a child that is in the UPK system and is in need of special education. What kind of partnership exists between where my child is going for the UPK services and their neighborhood health center where they go for their appointments? And what kind of communication is there with the parent to understand the development of the child? And also, is the school / center communicating with their pediatrician so that they are aware of the development that the child is going through? I like to see a collaboration between health center, school, and parents, so that everyone's on the same page of where the child is heading, so that by the time they're out of the UPKC and going into kindergarten and BPS, there's appropriate follow-up.
Yeah. And I would say that this is an area I would love to see us strengthen as well. And so, we have community hubs in BPS, and I talked a little bit about how we want to know more about vision, health, nutrition, et cetera, whether children are receiving those services. But there isn't that direct connection, I think, to the pediatrician that we would like to see. The one thing we are doing is we also receive support through Children's Hospital, who wants to better understand the two things. One is, how are we connecting with families? And then school readiness, like what are the indicators of school readiness? And so I see a space there to expand that work.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Kristen,
Yeah, were you going to add to that?
No, the only thing I would say, one of the things about the Ages and Stages questionnaire, which is done by all of the classrooms, is that it's actually a tool designed for parents. And it's a tool that as you walk through it, there's like multiple tests, and each test is for a specific age group. So it's like 8 months, 10 months, there's a different one. And each one is calibrated to what a child developmentally should do at that stage. And so when you're walking parents through it, it begins to help parents see where their child is performing as would be expected and maybe where they're not. Acknowledging that not every child develops at the same rate in the same spaces. So it's also a monitoring tool. You can do it again 3 months, 4 months later, 6 months later, so that you actually know it are some of the things that you're beginning to do with young people being successful, right? And so that's also, the results of those are shared with parents. They're walked through so they have an understanding. I think a piece of this work is also in helping parents feel like it's okay to accept EI services. Yeah. It's okay to accept speech and language, because sometimes those things are difficult for parents. And so Tiara's team and also the educators in our child-based settings have skills on how to do that.
Can I just provide one final comment, not a question, just a comment? Just thank you for that. And then one thing that I'll just add is that, one thing that I'm also aware of is that, I think you touched upon that a little bit, Kristen, at the end, is that different cultural groups have different understanding of what a child may need. Working with the lab at BMC, just understanding that, for example, I'm going to speak from my own personal experience, like a Dominican family may not think, oh, they have special needs, they're just delayed. And then that prevents the child from getting the services that they need. So also having a cultural competency there for different cultures, I think would be important for Boston and the school system to have in place. I think that would be a great place for us to also put some more effort into.
Yeah. Can I just also note, we hire family partners as part of our department. We currently have 6 to help us really have those conversations with families so that they can make that connection. So between our enrollment team and our family partners, that's exactly what we're trying to address.
That's awesome.
In a way that they feel comfortable having the conversations with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry for going over my time.
Thank you, Councilor Pepin. Councilor Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the panel for being here. I was at a meeting last week at Josiah Quincy School discussing the Sheltered English Immersion Program, and parents were asking about this specific program, what impact it has on Chinese students. And so some of the parents asked me or referenced that the immigrant community, especially in Chinatown, is not able to access the curriculum without educators in their classroom who are able to offer native language support. This is hurting students with special needs. They are not getting the appropriate accommodations if they do not have the sheltered English immersion program, which I support. I'm a strong supporter of that. So I want to make sure that my constituents, that their parents speak Cantonese and their children, the young children, are speaking Cantonese and learning English as well. I want to make sure that they're able to effectively participate in this program. What are you hearing about this as it relates to Chinese families?
I mean, that's unfortunate to hear. I want to make sure that they have the space to come to us too directly and share that feedback, especially as the new executive director. It's so important to me that that P to second alignment happens. And Quincy, Josiah Quincy, is one of the schools that our families are connected to and transition to, and so we need to address that. And I think it starts with better understanding what is available and what's not available. We should have our curriculum trans-adapted and available there. We should be building that with our families if we're not. I know that Boston Chinatown Neighborhood Center is a few blocks away.
Yeah.
They've trans-adapted their curriculum that's available, and so we can make sure that we're connecting BCNC with the Quincy and doing that work together if necessary. But that would be where I would start, is to better understand their specific needs and how do we partner with some providers in that area to support.
For the program, for the UPK program for Chinese students that speak Cantonese and their families as well, BCNC right on Tyler Street, and obviously Josiah Quincy School.
Yeah.
Where else is there a program for these families?
So within that area, we don't have any other dual language programs in that area. We do have the YMCA Wang, which is right in that area, but it's not specifically a dual language program.
Yeah, the reason I ask is the Chinese community now, because of how expensive Chinatown is,
Right.
they have moved outside of Chinatown. Many of them are living in the Roxbury area. Mm-hmm. Many of them are living near the Symphony Hall area, in other parts of the city. How are we supporting those Chinese families? I want to make sure, they're not my constituents, but I want to make sure that they are also benefiting from these excellent programs. I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help those Chinese families.
So I think that a lot of those Chinese families are probably going to Boston Chinatown Neighborhood Center because it is open to any family in the city. And I know from having been to the conversations at the Josiah Quincy, I was there as well, is that is a hub for families and a place that they continue to want to go, which is why the Quincy is working on their application to really figure out how they can continue to have the supported Chinese language conversation in school.
But we're not limiting the students based on a radius outside of Chinatown at all, are we?
Not in UPK.
Not in
UPK is
UPK, okay.
citywide. Any
Okay.
student, and you must just be a Boston resident.
Okay. I know we are doing that outside of UPK, which is a concern for me.
Right.
As I mentioned, a lot of Chinese families are living outside of Chinatown. I want to make sure that they are participating in English and Cantonese speaking programs. So the Chinese families that are about a mile away, living in Roxbury or living in the Symphony Hall area, how are they getting to Josiah Quincy or BCNC?
Yeah, so in the community-based programs, we do not provide transportation as part of the universal pre-K program. Certainly if the child is in BPS, then transportation is provided. But there's no transportation provided in the community-based programs or family child care.
Have we done any studies at all on how these families are making that trip into Chinatown from their home?
No, but it's certainly something we could look into. I think across the board is how do are families choosing programs closer to where they live? You know, is their commute closer to where they work. I think that's really important information to know.
Yeah, that's important to me. I'd like to know how they're getting there, what challenges they have as it relates to transportation, what impact it is having on the other children in their family if the mother or the father has to take the child by MBTA, then how do the other children in that family get to school while the parent is out? Have we thought about any of those issues?
I think we always think about those issues. Have we done a study on those specific questions? We have not. So it's definitely one of those things that we can begin to explore with families. One of the things we do find is that because they can select a mixed delivery site anywhere in the city, that people typically select one that is convenient for them. That may not be the case for those who are seeking a specific
Right.
language program, so we will definitely begin to ask those questions.
Okay, finally, I did want to ask the superintendent about the sheltered English immersion program citywide. That's an important program. I have great faith in that program. I want to make sure that my constituents that speak Cantonese, so Mandarin, have the same equal access as other students. And I hope we're not, I hope we're able to continue to provide opportunities for Chinese students in their native language, Cantonese, Mandarin, and in English. I don't want to see that watered down. I want to also see Chinese families outside of 1 mile of Chinatown be able to go to Josiah Quincy to get a decent education as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Councilor Fitzgerald, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, panel, for being here. Great questions from my colleagues. Some of these may be semi-repetitive, if you will, but maybe it's just more of an opportunity to expand or clarify on them as well. But I just want to make sure I have this right. Could you explain to me again how the UPK Special Education Services feeds into the inclusion model as you enter BPS? I understand that it's separate, but we have BPS teachers giving the IEPs or doing the test to see if kids need to be put on an IEP. And then if they do, we are required to put them in. So then they at 3 and 4, they are then entered into a BPS school. For, say if they're at Boys and Girls Club Dorchester, give one of them a test. Okay, yes, you need to be put on an IEP. Then they become a BPS student automatically? Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
I mean, if it's speech, just to clarify, if it's speech,
OT.
OT, or behavior health, we want to keep the child in their program, ideally. So if they're at the Boys and Girls Club and those services can be provided at the Boys and Girls Club, they stay there.
But if there's anything greater than that as a
Yes.
service provided,
Yes.
they are placed into a school.
Yes, thank you.
Gotcha.
Were you going to add to that?
I was just going to say, assuming their parents consent to what's in the IEP.
Yeah.
So remember that this is a process that is about evaluation. It's about providing a plan to the parent. There's conversation back and forth. So I just want to not minimize that piece of it.
And there is no way, and I don't have any, I've had no story been told to me
Yeah.
about this occurring this way, but it's just kind of me thinking how I think. Is there anyone that people abuse this in any way to make sure their kid gets into BPS? Like, oh, if I get my kid on IEP, bang, automatic seat at maybe a potential certain school that has their service. Has there been anything like that? I have no history of it, but I'm just curious if there's been.
No, I mean, I would say what we do have as Universal Pre-K is a connector system, so we prioritize any family in that program to automatically connect to BPS K2, so hopefully that will minimize if there was any family.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ensuring access is huge, and thank you for all your efforts around doing that. Has there ever been difficulty, I think this is sort of the Council Pepin's point, in getting parents or kids to accept that access? Because I know in some cultures, it could just be say, no, he doesn't need an IEP, he's just not trying hard enough, right? Or things like that. And how much of that do you run into that might, set children back that we know need it, that need services, but they will not get them?
So I think there's always a challenge for parents when they find out that their child learns differently than others. And sometimes that's easily overcome, and sometimes it takes more work. There are resources for the state where they have other families who have a child on an IEP that will speak with families. They will speak with families who are from a similar cultural background. We can connect them to that service. We also have people within BPS who will speak to other parents. Our SPED Pack is a tremendous resource for parents who are maybe going through the acceptance process for the fact that their child is just going to be a little bit different. I think those things have gotten better, but there are always families for whom it is a difficult process. And at the end of the day, they can say no.
Right, right, that's what I mean. So it's like all of a sudden then you know you're having a tough time convincing the parents, like, this is what your kid needs, and if they don't, then there's nothing we can do.
I will say it's not frequent that parents say absolutely not. It's part of a conversation, but I do think, it's important for us to be able to help young people access the content and access their potential, and so there are folks in place to continue on working to that until it happens.
And I will just also say some of that comes from just the connection we're making to families very early to help them understand what this means. I think Councilor Murphy, you said it best. It's a good thing when we identify children early and ensure that they have those services and supports. And so just making sure they understand there's no stigma associated with their child needing additional services and support. So getting to them as early as infants and toddlers and introducing them to these supports early, I think is super helpful.
Is it a standardized test that is for an IEP? Like, what is it more just a collaboration of things that determine if a child needs it? I should know this. My wife's a special ed teacher. Don't get into how much I listen at home, but is there any standardized testing around that process?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to speak to this, but I would say that it certainly depends on what's identified through the observation, and the test is then specific to that. So speech, concern, specific to that, OT, specific to that. But I would rather have an expert here to talk about what those tests are. Unless you
but I mean, are they?
But there's
right. So
there's
different versions.
Yeah.
There's some have standardized, some don't. And if a child has English as a second language, is that standardized test valid, or is it considered? I mean, how, like, under the terms of the law?
Yeah, so I think we're always learning more about the cultural efficacy of the kinds of tests we use. Are they perfect? No. Have they gotten better? Yes. So when Tiara was talking about translation, she also used the word transadaption. So where it is possible, based on the research that we have, some of these tests are transadapted, which means they're set in a cultural context, not just translated, right? So the work that Viet-Aid is doing with their curriculum isn't just saying, well, we have an apple, and here's what the word apple is in Vietnamese. It is taking a fruit that is culturally relevant in Vietnam and translating that word. So it's about that piece. Are some of the tests better than others? Sure.
Gotcha. No, yeah, I just wondered if there was a validation concern, a legal validation concern. If it's English is the second language and you take it, does it hold up? And right, you take a standardized test, and it's sort of like, well, yeah, of course they didn't do as well. How could you say it's valid or not? Right.
To the extent possible, we are mitigating for those things.
Great, thank you. You said you write the curriculum internally, right?
Yes.
What are the processes around that, and who sets that criteria, or the level of who sets the bar on that of what you guys need to meet while writing that curriculum?
Yeah. A couple of things about the curriculum. One, it's P through second. It's a community-driven approach, and so it's not just written by BPS internally, but it includes our families, it includes our providers, teachers, etc. It's important that it's aligned to the mass standards as well, and so obviously the way that we're writing it is in alignment to that. We want to make sure the experiences that the child is having at community at 3 years old is then connected to the experiences they're having around community in the second. And then currently in this next year, our curriculum then goes through a review. And so we have an independent vendor who is going to be looking at our curriculum to ensure not just the cultural relevance, but the alignment to the standards and the alignment P to second, and then it will eventually go to DESE for the curate review.
Thank you, because that was my next question.
Yeah.
If there's last, I know we're up here, but I also heard said that we're having issues finding space to hold these things, right? To a degree.
Yeah.
But I also was just thinking, like, well, we have schools that we're thinking about combining, closing, because they're half full. So there's really trouble finding space when we have a school that's half full? Is there any way to kind of combine those two issues? And
So we've done what we can to with the schools as they currently are, right? So we talked about a number of our K-1 classes that were changed into inclusion classrooms and have K0 and K1 inclusion students, as well as K1 gen ed students. So we expanded our access for early learners that way this year to generate more seats. What we're looking at in the future, and this is the work that I referenced that Tiara is helping to lead, is working with our capital planning office on, as we free up more buildings or as we're reconfiguring buildings, what is the space that we need for 3- and 4-year-old programming as we continue to see this influx of early learners who then actually we want to keep as they become kindergartners, first, second, third. And so how do we make sure that that's part of our capital planning process?
And some of it could just be something like toilets. I can't even tell you how much I've talked about toilets in the last year, but a part of it is understanding that the space is developmentally appropriate.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much,
Thank
guys,
you.
for your answers.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate that. I just have a few questions, and then we'll go to a second round of questions for my colleagues. Director Maswain, I think you mentioned, I really want to know more about, what kind of data is your office tracking regarding the outcomes of children receiving special education services in UPK? And then are there specific areas where you see room for improvement on that end?
So in terms of data outcomes, I think what we're tracking is, did kids get screened? Did they get put on an IEP? And are we meeting that IEP? Because for a lot of our younger learners, that then transitions them fully into the special ed space where they're really tracking, were you successful as an individual child meeting your IEP goals? That tends to lead to another set of IEP goals, because it's many times so my son, for example, started an IEP when he was 3 for speech, and by the time he was in first grade, he was done. But that transitions you out of that early childhood space and into first grade. So a lot of kids were not necessarily expecting to see getting on an IEP and coming off of an IEP before they transition up into some older grades. It does happen, but generally not by the time you reach kindergarten. It's generally a little bit later. So we're looking at their progress academically as we would look at everybody else's progress academically.
And when do you see the majority of students getting out of that, if it's not up?
I think we would actually have to come back to you with that answer, because I don't think I've ever been asked that question.
Okay, thank you. And Director, I think you were talking at an earlier point about nonprofits and businesses being, working as providers, and then you work with both. Do you have data on the split between nonprofit providers and private business providers that provide?
So all 11 of the family child care are actually small businesses. They are incorporated that way. We can get you the breakdown for the child care centers. The majority of them are nonprofits, but not all of them.
Okay, and then when we're talking about the RFP, what's the demand there? How many applications are coming in?
I think certainly since the Office of Early Childhood, we have seen an increase, so shout out to them for their marketing and support. We brought on, I believe the year before last, 10 providers. I think there were like 12 applicants in that year. We initially had brought on 11. Actually, that was the same year as family child care. So in addition to the 12 family child care, we also brought on 10 community-based providers. That was probably one of the highest shares we've had in providers interested in universal pre-K.
Great, no, thank you. And Director Diaz, just my final question here before we move on. Can you speak, and I know you spoke about it a little bit earlier, about the feedback that we're receiving from parents about the special education services provided in pre-K. And then how are we taking that feedback and then implementing it? Do you have any examples of anything we've taken specifically from parents and families?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of staying within their education setting beyond the speech, OT, and behavior health is one of the bigger ones that we're focused on, and bringing that message right to the superintendent and saying, we need at least X amount of itinerant teachers. Here are the services that we believe could be provided. Just to emphasize again, we have biweekly check-ins with school leaders, the superintendent and her team, just to make them clear on the work that we're doing. We meet internally, capital planning to supply and demand to, Panda, like we're all special services, we're all together trying to figure out that work. So I would say that's one example, is trying to drill down on those itinerant teachers and being able to keep students in their classrooms beyond those 3 services.
Great. Well, thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to proceed with a second round of questions from my colleagues. Once again, I'd like to recognize the original sponsors to begin and then proceed in order of arrival. Councilor Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. A few things that I heard I want to follow up on, and just to be clear that this conversation was never intended to just talk about students who have, speech therapy, something that we know can be provided, that it's the more severe needs. And when we talk about, it's not just someone who learns different, and no parent that I've ever known was reluctant to sign on to services because their child needs an obvious, like a stuttering or can't get a few letters right, speech therapy. So, I mean, and all teachers in BPS are trained and prepared to offer Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 teaching, which is what catches that umbrella of different learning. The idea that we photocopy worksheets now when we only teach one way has been gone for decades, thankfully, in education. And in BPS, it makes the teacher's job harder, but obviously is something that our teachers are expected to do, and I think they do a great job at that. So this is not talking about those differences that we all need to make sure our classrooms are set up so different learners are provided with that. Also, when we talk about the team and the conversations that have, many people forget that the parent are a part of that team. They are a part of that team. It's not the team working with the parent. They are, I would say, the most important part of the team next to the student. But when Councilor Pepin mentioned about like community centers or pediatricians, oftentimes parents, and it's why special ed, DESE has been looking at it closely, ignores parents' concerns. And special ed coordinators are told to tell parents, you can't write your own letter. Let the teacher decide. Let the special ed team decide. Let's have a few meetings. Where then pediatricians, thankfully, if they're able to have a doctor, a pediatrician who will help them, and advocates for them and writes that letter. There are also wonderful advocates. I know I worked with many. And anyone can be a parent's advocate. I've been asked. I know the superintendent in the mayor's office has pushed back and asked me not to be an advocate for parents, but parents have reached out to me directly asking me, can you help me advocate? My child is failing. My child is not getting services delivered. And that's not an exaggeration. We know the data shows that BPS has not been delivering on their special ed services. So I want to be clear that UPK is a wonderful program. I mean, my youngest is 25 now, so I struggle trying to figure out where my child went at 3 and 4, and knew as a early childhood teacher that the most amazing thing is when your child has a wonderful daycare preschool setting. So shout out to everyone providing it, and the students that they catch that have a few learning differences that we can address is important. But when Councilor Fitzgerald asked the question, if you are identified, and then we do hopefully within 45 days write an IEP, do you become a BPS student? Well, federally, yes, we have to say you are. We have to check a box that the federal government then believes we're doing the right thing. But the reason I wrote this hearing order is because I heard from many families who said, we finally got the testing done. We needed an advocate there. We finally have the services we hope are going to help my child. But now they're saying there's no place for them. So even though we're saying they're a BPS student, we're not providing them a seat. And then even saying that we're gonna like plug the hole of the sinking ship and that we're like hiring someone new or adding a teacher maybe to fill the gap concerns me also, because then many times it's presented to these families like we're doing them a favor.
Oh yeah, no, do not misunderstand me. That was to make sure that a student in the time that we couldn't transition them yet to BPS had some additional support.
Absolutely.
It is not what is necessary, and that doesn't mean you don't
Yeah.
continue to try and get the student to BPS. But I'm just saying that part of what we've tried to do when that is not possible is mitigate it, both for the student, but also the other
The
kids in the
teachers, too,
classroom.
and the
the
teachers.
teachers.
Absolutely.
Everyone.
And the
Absolutely.
program, who has
Absolutely.
reached out also saying, we're struggling, like, we're trying to
Absolutely.
pull, and then we're pulling from another need.
Yep.
But my point is that it's, with the $1.7 billion budget, like, it's not that we should find someone to help, like, we need to hire someone. We need to figure it out, because that's what happens when we're not providing ESL services. That's what happens when we're not providing special ed services for our high school students, right, at any grade level. So I just want to be clear that, and then also just that point that Councilor Peppin brought up, like shout out to the pediatricians who know that BPS is a system that is really hard to navigate for parents, and that they step up and advocate for them. So that, and also, it's new, we're learning, but it's not new that we have, 2, 3, 4-year-old and parents try to go directly, because in the past, if it wasn't a UPKC, they were at they were at Boys and Girls Club. They were already in a setting.
It's true.
There's amazing, preschool settings. You're working directly with them now with our RFPs, but they were already providing for decades preschool opportunities, and already the advocates, if it was through ABCD or other programs, trying to help these children get the services they need. So before, they would try, I guess, to call special ed directly, and it was harder. So how are we making sure that now that we're connected directly to a bigger number of students, that we're offering the testing, and that we're not looking at it as a burden? Because we have to staff accordingly. Because it is the school psychologists that administer the IEP test. It is the other special ed teachers who do get assigned. They're called T students still, and they have to go to the Jewish day school. They have to go to the parochial school. They do have to test these children. And so what are we doing to ensure that we're making sure that students are automatically placed into a BPS setting if identified, and that the testing isn't something that seems to be so painful, or that you really need to gear up with advocates. Like, advocates are great, but I always say we shouldn't need them. Every child deserves the same testing, right? 48 hours prior, all the testing results need to be delivered to parents. The number of parents who tell you that doesn't happen, it never happens to families who always come with an advocate, right? It only happens to families they don't know their rights. So for me, my job is to make sure we're lifting up those voices.
Appreciation for everything that you said. If I could just say what you said. But just to add a little bit around I wanted to just highlight the coaching and the professional learning. And so to your point, thank goodness we're away from worksheets. The learning transfer that happens between a BPS K-1 teacher and a community-based teacher and a family child care, those are the spaces that we try and create as frequently as possible. 3 happened this summer, and they'll continue to happen throughout the years, where we think about the best ways that we can support students together. We did, to your point around the seats, we're hoping that has been addressed in this last year. So the increase in inclusion seats, the intent was to ensure that we don't have the same challenges that we had last year, and my hope is that the feedback that you heard was from last year, and we have much better feedback for this upcoming year. The last thing that I keep thinking about is eliminating silos, and that was the goal of this work, was to keep BPS from working, not playing nicely in the sandbox with family child care, or you know what I mean, and I mean that in the nicest way, but like, what are the ways that we are eliminating silos? And I think one of the biggest ways is we have a UPK related services and behavior health manager. They sit in BPS and they sit in the specialized services department, but they work directly with me. And so we ensure.
Is there a reason they're not here today to talk directly about related services being
well-
delivered to UPK students?
So she is, actually, the two of them are employed under me, and they sit under my department, so I'm speaking on behalf of them. It's our UPK Related Services Manager and our UPK Behavior Health Manager. So while they sit under the two departments, or rather the specialized services, they work directly with me. And so part of what they are is my bridge between the community-based programs and BPS, and helping us to better understand how these programs could collaborate. It's not just about the teachers, it's ensuring that the services can be provided in BPS, and how do we collaborate across those settings. And we've gotten better. They've been in place for 3 years now, and we're continuing to work, turn and talk to each other, and play kindly in the sandbox.
Okay.
Yeah, did you have anything
Well,
else?
just lastly, I would say, I mean, we have to get it right. We know we haven't been getting it right at all grade levels, not just our youngest 3 and 4-year-olds. And I would never want my child to be a case study to say maybe we should do it better. You don't get 3 back. You never are 4 again. If you're 5 and you never got the proper services and then you're thrown into first grade, you're going to be that child that continuously gets passed on and is continuously struggling to learn how to read and all of the other skills that they lost. So we have to get it right. There's no excuse.
I agree.
There's no financial excuse. There's no excuse. There's space. And I always worry that it's just there's no political will, because we have the money, we have all of the departments, we have everyone working under everyone else, so we have the army ready to go, but it seems like it never gets to the point where we fix it, where we make it a place where BPS is actually a shining star and an example. That's why we spend so much money on busing students out if families can, and it's not that hard to prove, that BPS cannot deliver the services my child needs. They need to be placed in an outside setting, and they get placed to the Carroll and we bus them there, or they get placed to outside services that can, but we should be able to do that here.
I think we agree with you, Counselor, which is why we both acknowledge the challenges that you're highlighting, and we've tried to share with you the ways that we're working to address them. And what we are hoping is that by looking at the data in terms of the number of classrooms that are full and where they're getting full. So right now we have an excess of inclusion seats, center-based seats, and ABA seats, because we know that over the course of the year, kids who were not 3 by September 1st are going to turn 3.
And they need to go to
And they
K0.
need to go to a class. And so that's a piece of the work that we've done. One of the other things we've done is expand the number of K0 seats for kids that were 3 by September 1st. So those are the things that we're doing to try and address the challenges that you've highlighted. We are hopeful that those numbers will continue to be what we need them to be, and at the same time, we're beginning to do what we talked about with Councillor Fitzgerald, which is think about how our capital planning efforts allow us to be growing that K0, K1, K2 spaces over the coming years as we think about the footprint that needs to best serve our district. And to Councillor Weber's point, how do we think about making sure enough of those spaces are bilingual spaces so that our learners who do have specialized needs are getting what they need both in their home language as well as in English?
And one last thing, because we're not talking about 100 students here coming out of pre-K. It's a small number, and every teacher can file a class-size grievance, and there always can be more than the allotted number of students. They pay you a few $1,000s extra, or they give you a para to support.
Yep.
So we have to make sure that even though you may have met your limit, you know, at the Linden in West Roxbury, or a parent's hoping that their child gets placed, you know, at the Mather in Dorchester, oh, but that K2 class is full. It's never full. We can always add another student as long as we're providing what's written clearly in the contract to supplement the need for the teacher. So we should never leave a child without the services and placed as a formal BP student. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Weber, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just a few more questions. So we're looking at like the expansion of pre-K. You know, we've gone from 29 sites to 56 sites, and so what does this look like? If, to provide services to everyone who needs it in the next, 5 years from now.
My vision, or you want to see what the plan is? I mean, I think ideally we get to a place where I just want to acknowledge Mayor Janey for really beginning that expansion for 3-year-olds, and then Mayor Wu for making that investment. And so we know that we are reaching, that we don't have an access problem for 4-year-olds, and we know that for 3-year-olds is a space that we want to continue to expand. So I think considering how do we expand in our community-based programs to reach 3-year-olds, as well as in family childcare, so there is truly no wrong door. And I think using this data through our shared enrollment platform will ensure that we have those specialized services in place across those settings.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
so, I mean, are we, to meet the need, how many sites, how many classrooms do we, is this, have we
Well, yeah, we know,
enough?
right, we know that there's 13,000 3- and 4-year-olds in Boston. UPK is currently serving a little over 50% of those 4-year-olds and only 22% of the 3-year-olds. So I guess it's a matter of how many of our current providers want to continue to expand, but also new providers that are ready to come on board. Typically classrooms are between 15 and 20, so children each. So.
Okay.
I think the other thing that I would just add to Tiara's answer is that we have to finish up a philosophical conversation that we have begun, but as I indicated, not yet finished. And that is, how do we want to think about where 3-year-olds should be?
Right.
As we're doing our capital planning for BPS, do we actually think that we should have more general ed 3-year-olds in BPS schools or not? So is our strategy for serving 3-year-olds only doing it in the community-based space, or do we want to expand the way we serve them in BPS? And there's lots of different pieces to that conversation. There are some parents who don't want their students in a school. They want them in a community-based setting. They want to have those wraparound supports. I can drop them off earlier. I can pick them up later, right? Right now, we are really limited in BPS for the before and after school programming that we can provide that's licensed for 3- and 4-year-olds. So that's a piece of the equation. So there's lots of different things about that conversation that we have to figure out in order to answer your question. And so that's the path we're on in order to do it in a manner that is thoughtful and not just saying, we really want to serve the same number of 3-year-olds that we serve as 4-year-olds. Let's just go out and fund a bunch of seats, or let's just create a bunch of classrooms. We actually want to have the deliberate conversation, and to do it in partnership with our providers as well as our families, so that we're thinking through all of those externalities.
Okay, and we talked a little bit about space issues and finding the space, but what about staffing? Do we have enough? What issues are there with recruitment and retention? And I guess if you could start, a pre-K teacher is not on the same footing as like a first grade teacher. Are they being paid differently?
In BPS, they are paid the same.
Okay.
In our mixed delivery system,
Yeah, we start them about $60K for a bachelor degree teacher, and so it's aligned with what a BPS teacher would receive in starting at BPS.
But they're not in the union. Do they get pension benefits?
They get benefits from their provider, but not through BPS.
Well, I guess so. Just do we have enough? If we found the space, do we have people to staff them? How's that going?
So I think you're asking a couple of different questions. Let me try and tease them apart. So there's if we do the long-term facilities plan, let's for example decide that we are going to provide more classrooms for 3- and 4-year-olds in BPS. So those folks would be hired the same as any other BPS teacher. They would have the same credential requirements, and they would be in the same pay and benefit system. While there is always a need for teachers, right now I think we're seeing that we're able to recruit them. At the same time, we've invested as a city a good amount of our ARPA money in paying for credentials for early childhood educators. And one of the credentials that we have paid for is a bachelor's degree. So by 2026, we will graduate 175 people from UMass Boston with their bachelor's in early childhood. They can go work for BPS, or they can work in one of our community-based settings. Hold that for a moment. So then the next piece is in that mixed delivery space. Their credential for EEC is different than it is for BPS. The credential itself is different. Their pay scale is based on whoever they work for. What we require from the city side is if it is a classroom that we are paying for, that they have gone through the bidding process to be part of UPK, that they must pay them the salary that Tiara indicated. But what that means is in a center, I have some teachers who are making $60,000 and a teacher right next door who's making $30,000. And neither of them are in the BTU, benefit, retirement, any of those systems. Is that helpful?
Yeah, no, I know from
Okay.
speaking to pre-K providers that retention is a real issue.
Yeah.
Right, and it is it's a problem because we take them on the city side to work in PPS.
Yeah.
And so what we've been trying to work on the community-based side is thinking about how we can best support an increase in wages, both through UPK and through the work that my office did around sustainability of a higher wage. We've been working with the state on it in terms of C3 grants, and there's a ton of work still to be done in that space.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking more of just, well, I could continue doing this. I've done this for a couple of years, or I could take this job at the Linden teaching first grade, and then,
And a lot of people do that.
Yeah, okay. And is there how do we deal with that?
So we've been working with the Office of Workforce Development. They have a grant from the federal government, from EDA, to be working with Mass Hire to recruit new people into childcare, so that if people are leaving, do we have the resources that come and fill in behind them? And that's the piece we've been working on.
Okay.
There's a much longer answer.
Yeah, but so the answer is not just bring those people in. We can't just bring them into the the normal, the same boat that all the other teachers are in BPS.
Not all of them, no.
No. Okay.
There are 600 family child care providers and over 150 centers in the city of Boston. And all of them are licensed in a different space.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Weber. Councilor Braden, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm back. I'm just going to piggyback off this last question. You said the 600 family childcare providers in Boston. What impact does the UPK program have on the family childcare providers? Because some people would say that it's going to put them out of business, sort of.
Yeah. I mean, I think a couple of things. Family child care serves multi-age, so infants, toddlers, and preschool. Universal pre-K in the first year, last year, brought on our first group of family child care providers. And we quickly realized that while there may be similar to center-based providers who are ready, there are family child care providers who still need additional supports. And so if you visit the Office of Early Childhood's website, you'll see that there is a pathway for family child care providers, including funding and incentives to move them towards universal pre-K. But I do just also want to emphasize that the professional development and the supports that we offer are citywide. And so when we say that there is something available as far as professional development, it's available for everyone across the city. And our goal is to continue to expand and bring on more family child care providers in the future. Is there anything you would add?
I think the thing that I would add is what we're trying to create is a system that meets parents and families wherever they enter. There are a lot of families who choose family childcare, particularly for their infants and toddlers. And so by adding the UPK piece to family childcare, we're hoping to, for some of them to be able to keep 3- and 4-year-olds a little longer, because then they have the same transition into BPS. So that's the model that we're working on. They also tend to be the spaces that are most flexible and meet parental needs. There are actually a lot of young people with special service needs who are served through family childcare, and they also are able to better represent the diversity of languages that we have in the city. And so we're doing a both-and strategy, which is supporting those family childcare providers and supporting and bringing them into UPK. The other thing is the Great Start website is designed to help families be able to see what their options are. There are a lot of new parents who actually have never heard of family childcare. They don't know what it is. And so when you go to our Great Starts landing page, it actually walks you through what the difference is between a child care center and family child care, so that as parents are making choices, they actually know what all of their options are. We have not seen family child care going out of business because of UPK. We have seen family child care going out of business for lots of other reasons.
Yeah.
And those are the kinds of reasons that we're trying to address in terms of landlords who, don't want them to be operating, in terms of their fiscal solvency, marketing, and communication. So how do we actually support them as small businesses to be successful?
Yeah, yeah. And especially in the space of multicultural
Correct.
and flexible time, that a family childcare can take kids at 7 and pick them up at, there's different hours. And a lot of them are single operators as well, so they're limited to 6 children. And yeah. The other question I had was about just deaf education. Our young, do we have programs that sort of cater to infant toddler, and then UPKs, students who are deaf and hard of hearing? Because I know I imagine with our so many newcomers that we need to be screening very carefully for hearing loss and making sure that, and then also are we ensuring that those young people, those little ones are having access to American Sign Language instruction and parents as well. I know the ideal model is sort of an infant toddler program where parents and children are learning the language and sign language, basic sign language together. Where are we at with that?
Yeah, so we do have a deaf and hard of hearing program in BPS, but not in our community-based programs. And I know I get another piggyback is to gather information on that as well, and then just think through where that need potentially would be. But we have it in BPS, but not in our community base.
I think all of the young people are getting screened through their UPK
Yes,
classroom
that
for
part too.
hearing loss. I am actually not aware of any infant and toddler spaces that are specific. So we'll have to do some research and come back to you.
I think Jack, the Horace Man, when it was in Alston, did have an infant toddler program, but I think I don't know, they've transitioned over to Charlestown. I don't know what. And then the other question in terms of specialist services is in terms of teachers of the visually impaired for children that are visual impairment. Are they also part of the program to help support students? I know from working at Perkins that they had peripatetic teachers who I think had contracts, but I also know that many of our teachers went to work for BPS, so that early intervention stage where you're working on teaching children with vision impairment.
Yeah, another area where the services are in BPS, but certainly need to be expanded in community base. And we do the screenings initially as part of our comprehensive service work in community-based program, but no current provider that provides those services and supports.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And just really want to thank our panelists for joining us here today. Do you have any? Okay, great. So I've been told by Central staff that we do not have anyone sign up for public testimony. So I just really want to thank our panelists and my colleagues for joining us today. I also want to thank Central staff. Well, sorry. Yeah, so I want to thank all my panelists, members of the public, and other attendees, and my colleagues for participating in today's hearing. The hearing on docket number 0651 is adjourned. Thank you.